Well, Jack Dorsey, the former owner and chief executive officer of Twitter, has renewed the largely facile debate around the health of democracy in India. He's alleged that during the farmer protests at the height of the COVID pandemic, the Indian government under Prime Minister Modi wanted Twitter to regulate opinion critical of his administration on the micro-blogging platform. You will all remember, viewers, that the farmers were out blockading roads and saying that Modi's administration doesn't care about the people who define themselves as the andatas of this country. Dorsey says that non-compliance was allegedly not an option. Dorsey claims he was issued a menacing "we'll shut Twitter down in India" warning. Of course, Dorsey has thus far produced no proof to substantiate his very consequential claim. What is he saying? He's essentially saying that the Indian government did not want the farmers' angst, their appeals, their voice, their criticism to be amplified, to reach fellow citizens. Clearly, viewers, this would mean that the Modi government has a problem with farmers. And that's a very serious charge, that it was undermining its interests. Viewers, as you remember, the contentious farm laws were withdrawn by the government. MSP was paid in higher amounts than ever before to farmers. The Modi government has gone out of its way to suggest that it's farmer friendly. But here you have Jack Dorsey, who comes out and says quite the opposite. First, listen to his charge that suggests that the Modi government wanted to muzzle the farmers' voice, that are the most influential vote bank in India, and that too in a democratic country like ours. Listen to this, viewers.
Jack, one of the things, you're in a unique position. You believe in free speech. That's something I've never doubted about you. You also are in the unique position of having run one of these companies. Can you give us some anecdotes, as you alluded to, foreign governments and the pressures that you were under, if able, just to give the audience an idea of what it is really like to be in a position to have some of the most powerful people literally on earth coming to you and saying, demanding things of your company? And as someone with principles, how did you navigate that?
India, for example. India is a country that had many requests of us around the farmers' protest, around particular journalists that were critical of the government. And it manifested in ways such as we will shut Twitter down in India, which is a very large market for us. We will raid the homes of your employees, which they did. We will shut down your offices if you don't follow suit. And this is India, a democratic country.
Raid the homes of your employees. That was a threat, which they did, says Jack Dorsey. But actually, viewers, we all know they didn't. So that's an out-and-out lie. But nonetheless, in the absence of nothing more than a soundbite from Dorsey, the Modi administration accused the former Twitter CEO of spewing outright lies. But the usual suspects, the legion of leftists, and many in the opposition are lapping up the claims of Dorsey, a man who defied India's laws, was exposed for selective anti-right-wing bias and accused of weaponizing fake news. Naturally, viewers, with the opposition taking what Dorsey has said as gospel, union ministers, to contain the damage, to ensure that his alleged outright lies don't actually end up inciting farmers. These union ministers have lined up to fact-check Jack Dorsey and remind him of how under him Twitter willfully snubbed the laws of our own land. Listen in.
Twitter was misusing its power as a platform to selectively de-amplify and selectively de-platform people both in India and abroad. In India, it was a direct violation of Article 14 and Article 19. So I am deeply disappointed by Jack Dorsey's attempt at lying about what happened.
Twitter सेक्टर के लोग वही थे जो अमेरिकन कांग्रेस में पेश होंगे, ब्रिटिश संसद में पेश होंगे, लेकिन भारत की संसदीय कमेटी में नहीं पेश होंगे। तो ये ना भारत का संविधान उस समय मानते थे, ना भारत का कानून मानते थे।
जो जितना बदनाम करते हैं मोदी जी उतने ताकतवर होते हैं। जब भी मोदी जी कोई भला काम करेंगे, उनका जो क्रिटिसाइज करेगा वो कांग्रेस का और विपक्ष का दोस्त होता है।
Well, viewers, let me run you through the fact check. So Dorsey said in that statement to that news channel, they raided us, shut us. The center's retort is to the outright lie to brush out dubious Twitter's history. No one went to jail, nor was Twitter shut down. No one was raided or sent to jail. From Twitter specifically, Dorsey in repeated and continuous violations of laws, and that's the reason why he was pulled up. Dorsey then says many requests during farmer protests came from the government to basically mute and muzzle them. The center responded by saying misinformation and fake reports of genocide during the Kisan stir was the reason why they weighed in on Twitter to delete those profiles that were calling this entire movement and the government's response to it a farmer's genocide. Viewers, a genocide is a huge word to use. And when used loosely, it can incite passions. There was no genocide of farmers, viewers. We all know this. We've all lived through that period. The government also went on to say that government was obliged to remove misinformation from the platform. Fake news had the potential to further inflame the situation into the delicate situation, viewers. There were lakhs of farmers blocking the roads. There was even a raid on Delhi. The Red Fort was desecrated. You all know that. You saw those pictures. Viewers, Dorsey says this is India, a democracy. The government says Jack Dorsey's arbitrarily, blatantly partisan, discriminatory conduct was the reason why the government had to step in. Misuse of its power on its platform during that period. Partisan is using de-amplify and de-platforming for some. Violated rights and assisted in weaponizing misinformation. I apologize, viewers, we've cut down these sentences so they might sound as if they're out of context, but they were one whole quote. Now, viewers, while some would rightly say, and you're skeptical, and so must I, that it is unadvisable to take the government's version at face value. Yes, viewers, we are not doing that. We did some independent research of our own, and there are some real reasons to be skeptical about Dorsey's revelations. The timing certainly is one. Dorsey has spoken just ahead of a high-profile visit by Prime Minister Modi to the United States. It is no secret that hard left elements within the Joe Biden administration have reservations about Modi's record on rights and freedoms. Whether these reservations are borne out by facts has never mattered to the American wokery, the leftists there, that see Modi's politics as an extension of the inclinations of right-wing populists like Trump, that they seek to trounce to stay relevant themselves. So who is Dorsey to give us this lecture? But here I show you a sequence, viewers, where he is interrogated by an American himself in that committee's Senate hearing and is exposed. Watch this.
Why did Twitter make the decision to censor the New York Post?
We had a hack materials policy that we...
When was that policy adopted?
In 2018, I believe.
In 2018, go ahead. What was the policy?
So the policy is around limiting the spread of materials that are hacked. We didn't want Twitter to be a distributor for hacked materials. We found that the New York Post, because it showed the direct materials, screenshots of the direct materials, and it was unclear how those were attained, that it fell under this policy. Our team made a fast decision. The enforcement action, however, of blocking URLs, both in tweets and in DM, in direct messages, we believe was incorrect. We recognized an error in this policy, and specifically the enforcement.
He recognized the error. What was he actually censoring that appeared in the New York Post? And let me tell you, viewers, the New York Post is one of the top 3 most circulated newspapers, and it goes back almost 200 years. It was founded by a very tall leader, Hamilton himself, one of the founders, really, viewers, of American democracy. That paper was running a sustained campaign exposing Mr. Biden's son's dealings with a foreign power. And by censoring that, viewers, this man, Dorsey, who admits later that, yeah, we kind of messed up, viewers, kept vital information from the American public that could have had a bearing on how they voted. This man is going to lecture us about democracy? Let's open this up. And I want to ask some basic questions tonight of our panel, and I want to first begin with those that represent the Congress party and the opposition. There's Riju Datta, there's Tehseen Poonawalla. Tehseen Poonawalla, I hope you know what a parliamentary committee is. A parliamentary committee is a bipartisan body, and in this case it was led by the great Shashi Tharoor, who's a leftist icon. Now I want to ask you, sir, it was this parliamentary committee that pulled up Dorsey for not following the law of the land. And what was this problem? This problem was that his platform was amplifying loose talk of a genocide. Now, you know how inflammatory that can be. A genocide, sir. Parliamentary committee led by the Congress, Shashi Tharoor, opinion maker, left impresario, one of the most intellectual voices. And here you are siding, here is the Congress party siding with Dorsey, who wakes up 4 years later to spew venom. What's going on? Either you don't trust Shashi Tharoor or you trust Dorsey, who has a record as long as I can't even tell you what, viewers, of falsifying opinion and censoring opinion. What has happened to the Congress party and its ecosystem?
The truth lies somewhere in between. We don't have to be so polarized. For starters, my good friend Dr. Tharoor, who's also a friend or who is known to the BJP spokesperson, isn't a leftist. Neither am I a leftist. In fact, I think lefties are quite loonies. I said this on Smitaji's shows. But I'm a centrist, and I think that we need to understand what the facts are. So the facts are this. One is either pregnant or not pregnant. You can't be half pregnant. So either Twitter broke the laws, violated the laws, and if they did, they should have been prosecuted. What the government of India and the BJP spokespersons are saying is, oh, they broke the laws. If they broke the laws, where is the prosecution? Point number one. Which law they broke? Nothing has been spoken about. Now, let's come to the facts at hand. It is absolutely true that this government went after the farmers' protest. You may not call it a genocide, Rahul, and I absolutely bow down to it, but 700 of my farmers dying to me is a very big number, which should not have happened. The Twitter medium was used to talk about the injustice to farmers, and activists like Disha Ravi were arrested. We know how the courts came down heavily on them.
Mr. Poonawalla, you're confusing and conflating two different issues. Please, 1 second, sir. Please, let me interrupt you. Can Jack Dorsey be seen as an objective voice in criticizing our country, our government, our elected government, and our democracy? Simple, straightforward question. When the Congress-led panel of Parliament pulls him up for undermining our democracy. Straight question, sir.
And straight answer. Criticizing the government is not criticizing the country. He's criticized the government. Point number two, this is a government that wants to censor social media. Recently, they got out a fact-check unit under the PIB, under the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, which the Bombay High Court had to step in, and they said we have informed rules only to control social media. This government wants to control information, and it is our duty to fight this government. It is trying to control information, as in the case of Disha Ravi.
So let me just 1 second.
Laws, they should be prosecuted. I am Home Minister, I will prosecute them. We have an incompetent Home Minister. That's the unfortunate reality of our times.
So 1 second. There are two different issues here, and Tehseen is once again deliberately conflating them. Viewers, the Congress might have legitimate reasons or compulsions, or call them what you want to attack the government on free speech. That was not my question. It's not as if the Congress has not stepped on toes. And let me tell you, in 2012, directives had gone out to block 16 Twitter handles for contentious content. Two belonged to journalists, one of whom was Kanchan Gupta, who is today...
And Shivarur.
One second.
Terrible.
One second.
And
one second.
terrible by the Congress.
Let me give out the facts. Okay, mind you, this was a UPA government. Will the Congress that now backs Dorsey condemn its own censorship? No, viewers. They sent Tehseen Poonawalla, who is very easily, and you know what he does? He very easily, to sidestep the issue, turns into the biggest critic of the Congress on this debate. It's a very clever ploy. Yeah. This is called deniability. And Sushant Sareen will realize that it is a practice in intelligence circles. Operational deniability. Bhaiya, ek aadmi ko bhej do. He will say everything that the anchor wants to hear. So there's no problem. We divert this. You know, don't fool us. Don't fool us. Yeah. Don't fool us. The point of the matter is, viewers, we are talking about the opposition.
Arrest them.
Okay, I'm getting in Shehzad Poonawalla to respond to you politically. I am talking about the opposition latching on to a person who has been quite singularly discredited around the world. In fact, he lost his entire company. Viewers. Shehzad Poonawalla, would you like to respond to Tehseen Poonawalla, who's made a very simple and straightforward charge that you are out there to muzzle everybody, so this is not surprising at all.
Rahul,
3 reasons why he's wrong.
First of all, now Tehseen, if you can...
tell us what laws. Just tell us what laws they broke.
First of all, Tehseen Poonawalla is the Twitter equivalent of a panelist, wants to enjoy the benefits of being a panelist who represents the Congress view, but doesn't want to take the onus of it, just like Twitter never wanted to subject themselves to the rigors of Section 79. So Tehseen is that kind of panelist. Anyways, having said that, Tehseen should be the last person whose government brought in the 66A, the persons who put Majru Sultanpuri in jail, banned Kishore Kumar from singing songs, imposed censorship, sacked B.G. Varghese, put a journalist in jail in various parts of the country, including Kamal Shukla, who's gone to jail and faced sedition charges for an innocuous post on Facebook. That government, which put 8,000 cases of sedition on people in Kodunkulam, should be the last persons lecturing us about free speech. Didn't they endorse George Soros' statement? Didn't Praveen Chakravarti endorse it? Didn't they endorse Pakistan's view on Article 370 and on the surgical strikes? Didn't they endorse the New York Times on the COVID mismanagement of India? Didn't they endorse Global Times on the Galwan figures that nobody of the Chinese side was dead? Okay. Didn't they endorse Pakistan's view on surgical strikes? Therefore, Congress ko har cheez Videshi pasand hai, and so they have gone with another Videshi.
Because Mr. Dorsey doesn't have above board credentials, the Congress is being opportunistic by using him to incite farmers. Sushant Sareen, let me bring you in. Tehseen, 1 second. We've had a big, long opening with you. You went around.
But he didn't tell what laws that Twitter violates. He spoke about everything.
Okay, let me tell you.
Just 10 seconds on that. Just 10 seconds on that. Just 10 seconds. Very fundamental on that. By the way, the entire infrastructure of the intermediary guidelines came about when 2 reports, the ad hoc report led by Jairam Ramesh and the JPC report, which was having Jairam Ramesh and Shashi Tharoor as members, suggested that social media platforms should be made accountable to the extent that if they host content, they should be immediately stripped of their intermediary status.
Let me just step in here. 1 second. I want
Please
to bring
tell
in
me if I am lying.
Smita Prakash, before I also bring in the incomparable Riju Datta into this. Now, 1 second. What are we talking about here, Sushant Sareen? What's the real issue?
Rahul, the real issue is a very simple one. One, I think the way Twitter was being run under Dorsey and again his successor, that fellow of Indian origin, it was clearly a very agenda-driven platform. They were trying to push agendas. So, for example, when Dorsey had come to India, I think it was in 2018, if I'm not mistaken, you remember that he was holding this poster, Smash Brahminical Patriarchy. What business? He's a businessman. He is running a platform which is a social networking platform. It also peddles information and disinformation. Should a person like that be wading into whatever social or political issues there are in India? Is it his business to do that? But these guys were doing it, right? And they were meeting with a specific kind of people, these deracinated Indians who have absolutely nothing to do with India. They will spout these nonsensical terms like Brahminical patriarchy, but never speak about, for example, what happens in other faiths, right? But they, Hindus are a nice, convenient whipping boy, so you whip them. Number one. So one was the agenda-driven problem, the agenda-driven, aspect of Twitter, which was a problem. The second was a legal one. The legal one was that it is that you are either a platform or you are a publisher. You can't be both. And these guys were planning to be both. When it suited them, they said we are a platform. When they wanted to assume deniability, and when they wanted to push an agenda, they became a publisher. They were the ones who decided what they will censor and what they will allow. Who had given them this right? Tehseen, the only sensible thing he said was loony lefties, right? I completely agree with him on that. Other than that, everything else he said was he was being disingenuous. And when Tehseen says that why didn't the government throw the law book at them, and I'm not a lawyer, but I'm just speculating on this. I think the problem was that there were, Twitter kind of fell between the cracks. There was that ambiguity on how you are going to impose the law on these guys. And I think that is where the problems came in.
Okay.
But for Twitter to pretend that, it was all
holier than thou and
one last point, Rahul, just one very quick last point.
Yeah.
To say that he was factually wrong. He was a liar on that particular show. He lied. But more than that, this white man thing which they have, that Indian law will not apply to them. They are in the West and they violate the law and somebody raids their offices, it's perfectly fine because the white man is doing it. But they come to India, and if the law book is thrown at them, even though there were no raids, but somebody raids an office for wrongdoing, that is, democracy is dead.
Well, let me tell you,
So
when that happened with the BBC, they all hit the roads. And Smita Prakash,
the BBC admitted that.
And then the BBC admitted that, look, we mucked up. We've got a lot of money to owe to the government. Can you imagine,
they cheated
viewers?
on taxes.
Can you imagine, viewers, how many crores? How many crores those were? And they still haven't been assessed, but they came up with the number themselves. Can you imagine how many schemes could have benefited? Anyhow, viewers, we are used to being ripped up by the Brits. It's happened in the past. It will continue to happen. I just hope that we develop better sense and we get over our little inferiority complex. Smita Prakash, I want to ask you, in 2012, directives had gone out. Now, 2012, bear in mind, as I said, to block 16 Twitter handles for contentious content, the UPA sent these directives out to Twitter. Parliamentary panel in 2019, and I'm talking another instance, had also summoned Twitter for allegedly curbing free speech of individuals who subscribe to the non-left wing ideology. Given this, can Dorsey stand in judgment of the NDA or India? He can censor. No one else can come to him and say, look, we have a problem. You are inciting mob violence almost. Can you help us? But that is an assault on democracy, while he can go around like a bull in a china shop and muzzle everybody, including perhaps you, Smita Prakash.
See, I think, one tends to forget that all said and done, Jack Dorsey is just a businessman. He's nothing else. He's a billionaire entrepreneur with oddities and peculiarities and very strong political views. He's a shrewd businessman who he was inclined against the ruling dispensation, yes, in 2020. He realized that his business incentives are aligned, even if his political inclination is to the other side. So when the company was supposedly pressurized, not just pressurized, he's saying threatened and raided, here's the owner of the largest microblogging site in the world, he goes silent. So then what are you going to say? It's a bit rich, no? That his business impetus, so long as they were aligned, he was silent and he apparently capitulated and now he couldn't. So let's think about it. Why is he talking about it now? He's CEO of what? A payment platform. So maybe there is some business interest involved in that. Maybe he's in competition with Indian payment platforms and that's why this pressure, so that doors are opened for him. So that there could be some kind of a quid pro quo that don't criticize us on free speech and we'll let you come in. Who knows, right? Because that's all he is. He couldn't withstand the pressure of the CEA, which used the backdoor of Twitter at one point of time under the cloak of national security. But Indian national security, nothing. American national security of global interest. Indian national security, third world country hai, leftist hai, non-leftist government hai, conservative hai. So why support these? So, the leftist media around the world nodding sagely to this white man who says that Indian democracy is nothing really. So, and you actually have the embarrassment of a Digvijay Singh today tweeting to Elon Musk, the new Malik of Twitter, saying, dekho, Jack Dorsey ne kya kiya hamare saath. I mean, it's the same left liberals who were asking proof of the Indian military for surgical strikes. They're not asking any proof from Jack Dorsey.
Let me ask you, Riju Datta, I'm sorry I've kept you waiting, but I like to save the best for last on India Upfront. So I'm asking you this question in all earnestness. Does the opposition need the crutch of a discredited super censor to score a few political points against the government? Has it come to this now? And that too, a foreigner who has no idea, apart from piercing his nose, about what Indian ethos is about. That's all that in common that he has with the Indian ethos. He has no understanding by anything.
Vipassana. He does Vipassana.
Okay, Vipassana. Well, that should teach him the importance of silence, choosing his words right, restraint. Anyhow, Riju Datta.
Okay. First of all, let me make it very clear on your show that Trinamool Congress is not supporting Jack Dorsey in any way, shape or form. Okay. But while India is still looking for answers after the devastating railway accident which cost 288 lives, after the huge data breach in the COVID, this bomb drops. Now, I will go by just facts, nothing, no whataboutery, just facts. He said certain things and he used India and he named Nigeria and Turkey. So he has placed India at the same platform as Nigeria and Turkey. Second thing, he mocked at India being a democratic nation. Now, if he is blatantly lying, as the BJP ministers are saying, it is the need of the hour that the BJP and the Prime Minister should bring him to court, should take him to task, because then only the truth will emerge. Otherwise, there is no accountability, because he cannot just say this on a platform in the United States against my country. I'm not having that.
Valid point. Very valid.
Second point.
No, I actually endorse that point. We should have that.
He met.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Now, my second point. This fellow, Jack Dorsey, met Prime Minister Modi in 2020, if I'm not wrong. 2021, he quit Twitter. And Elon Musk bought Twitter in 2022. Now, what Elon Musk said about Twitter, about India, and I'm quoting him verbatim. Social media rules quite strict in India. The billionaire owner of Twitter said that if it comes to choosing between complying with the law and having Twitter employees jailed, we would choose compliance. Now, are our laws too strict? That is between Twitter and the government of India. But if there is a shred of truth in this, the truth needs to come out. Because when all this was happening, and this is trending all across the world, only one thing comes to my mind.
No, 1 second.
Can I just finish, please?
There was a context in which he said that. So he was talking in general also about complying with the laws of countries, whether it is Australia, whether it is India, Japan, any other country. He said it in a context. So don't remove the context from the import of his words. He said, I'm a law-abiding businessman who believes in being pragmatic, whether it is China or any other country. If they have a particular law, I'll follow it. I'll design my platform to fit in with those laws. I think that's very respectable of him. He wasn't being duplicitous, where he said, I'm a free speech advocate, but you go yourself and censure people. That's what it was. Just putting the context out there.
Now, just before I finish, I will make one more point and one small comment about my good friend Tehseen. When all this was happening, the only quote that came to my mind is that a quote by Idi Amin, that, in my land there is freedom of speech, but I cannot guarantee your freedom after the speech. So I believe dissent should be there in democracy, because as the country says that we are a mother of democracy, so democracy should stand. I think the BJP should take stern action against it. And lastly, to Tehseen, I will just say that thank God Tehseen is not the official spokesperson. Yes, I did. And I will just say, Tehseen, that thank God he is not the official spokesperson of Congress, because I personally despise left. Everybody knows that. But what Tehseen said, if he would have been an official spokesperson, he would have been Sanjay Jha 2.0. But if it is plausible deniability, then good. Congress has a ploy.
It's plausible deniability in the extreme. Yes. Siddharth Poonawalla wants to respond to you.
One second. I think there are a lot of questions.
But I have to ask you. Yes, I have to ask you. The principal one. Will you take action against Dorsey? Yes, 1 second. Yeah.
The only parallel to Idi Amin's quote that has been quoted on your show is a quote by an institution of this country that we should generally be having rule of law, but we have law of the ruler. I think that's the only parallel that comes to mind. So perhaps Mr. Riju Datta will endorse, he's not endorsing Dorsey tonight, but he will endorse this statement. Now, when we speak about facts, Riju, since you brought in the CoWIN app, please tell me, when you went for the vaccine, did you fill your address in that? Or did you fill your date of birth? But the Telegram bot which you're speaking about manifests date of birth and address. So clearly it's not from the CoWIN app. But then facts and you don't mix, just like drinking and driving. Now let's come to the other point. No, 1 second. I am touched with Riju Datta's. Riju, please wait your turn. The civilized way of doing this debate is that you wait your turn. I finish my speech. My point. Now, facts do matter to Riju Datta. Therefore, he quoted about how he doesn't endorse the statement of a foreigner. Very good. Mamata Banerjee once said, on a law passed in Parliament, go for a United Nations monitored referendum on CA. I am waiting for Riju Datta, who was just lecturing the Congress's Stepney spokesperson. Now, if you say this, Riju, then perhaps you will become Sanjay Jha 1.0 in TMC. So perhaps you should not say all this and you should pipe down.
Okay. So there's hypocrisy here also, where you say that we don't endorse foreigners.
My answer?
Yeah, Riju Datta, go ahead. Please.
Rahul, my answer, please.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. Now, when, me and Shehzad can go over this all night long, because I can quote 10 things that all of a sudden today morning he and his masters have started quoting the Twitter files when they refused to accept the Hindenburg report. So I know what love you have for the white men. So let me not go into that. All of a sudden you are lovers of
on Hindenburg, Sharad Pawar, your ally said it's trash.
Let him finish. Post talks about what is happening here, then you don't talk about. Now have the culture and the decency of letting me finish, then coming in.
Please
Thank you very much.
Please go ahead.
So,
go ahead.
If you go to any child in this country and if you say that central agencies are not used for political vendetta and the voice of dissent is not choked in this country, then probably even the horses will laugh. So, Shehzad, let's keep all the hypocrisy to ourselves.
Okay.
Facts are, this guy in US national television has maligned my country, pulled the government,
That's a
and
question.
the Prime Minister
That's a
Narendra
question.
Modi.
Will action be taken against Jack Dorsey? Very quickly. Should he be?
Rahul, I think that action on such kind of elements and entities, it depends not on what the statements they make, but the statements, whether they are credible or not. Does any of these parties feel it is a credible statement? First, they'll say George Soros also said something.
Okay,
Does
so
Mr.
let me tell you, I'll tell you viewers what the US itself thinks of Jack Dorsey, and especially when he was running Twitter. And I'll end that debate on this. Let the last words be with the United States senators. In the US, even Democrats that actually benefited because of Twitter's left bias have hit out at Twitter and other social media platforms, where a senator said, "You have built terrifying tools of persuasion and manipulation with power far exceeding the robber barons of the last gilded age," unquote. Viewers, when US senators from the Democrat Party compare the likes of Dorsey to robber barons, then you can imagine who we are talking about here. And the opposition, especially the Congress, falling back. At least Riju Datta speaks for his party when he quickly